I recently shared a makeover of this journal right here, and today I want to tackle this one, which currently is just an empty shell. But there's reasons why I haven't moved on with this. Welcome, it's Barbara from Vienna, Austria. By the way, I've gotten so many comments about this journal shelf. I didn't always used to have my journals like this. In my previous apartment, they were all over my apartment, like in boxes under my bed, in cupboards, in drawers, just all over. And I couldn't wait to finally have them displayed. So when I moved to this apartment in September of last year, I knew I had to have a shelf to finally display my journals, and it makes me so happy. I also have received quite a few requests to show the journals that I have here in my bookcase. Let me know if that is something you would really be interested in. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to flip through all of these. Most of these have a flip through on my channel. I actually have a playlist with journal flip throughs. So if you're interested in that, please check that below this video. But I'm happy to just show them and tell you what kind of journal they are or when I made it, information like that. So let me know in the comments below if that is something you would like to see. But for now, let's show this cover some love. So I made this cover, I guess around 2 years ago. It's made from Amazon packaging. This is what it looks like on the inside. So I added some die cuts onto the cover here, onto the spine as well. And then I painted it with acrylic paint, and then I went over it with a really, really dry brush. And I think I used buff titanium then to go over it with a really, really dry brush. I really love the way the cover looks. This is a print from one of my digitals from my shop, and there's just some fabric here. There's a doily, and there's some Tim Holtz ephemera pieces. This is also obviously Tim Holtz. So I really love the colors, I love the style, everything, but there are two reasons why I haven't moved on with this cover. The first one is because I'm not happy with the spine. Because first of all, you see it has a crease here. You can't really see it on the outside, but I see it here on the inside. And also it doesn't open smoothly. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I have to really force it to open, which might get better with time, but somehow it's not motivating me to work in this. The other reason why I never added any papers to this is because of the strange format. I love this format because it's quite long and thin, but the challenge then is to find paper that would work in here. So for example, this is our standard A4 copy paper. If I would fold it in half, the width would be perfect, but it's not tall enough. I could fold it like this, but then it's too long and I would have a lot of very narrow pages. So I need to tackle both of these problems to be able to enjoy this cover. So my first task is to cut away the spine here. So I can do the back side with my paper trimmer, but for the front I won't be able to because this is not going to fit underneath this acrylic plate. So the reason why I'm sharing this process with you is because maybe you have older journals that need some love as well, and I just wanted to share some tips of what you can do. So don't be afraid to cut up old journals and give them a new life. They will be so happy, and so will you. So in a very recent video where I made this Jane Austen journal for my Digital Collage Club design team project, I used a soft spine binding method, which was inspired by Melanie Sullivan. I will link this video for you below so you can check out how I made this binding, and there you can also find Melanie Sullivan's video. So I want to try the same technique for this journal, but I'll alter it just a little bit. I already have a strip of canvas cut to the correct height that I need, and I knew I wanted to make the spine a little more narrow than the one I had on it previously. Obviously this is wider at the moment, but of course we need some overlap for the cover parts. So I'm going to set this part aside. I won't be needing this. And luckily I still found that paint that I used to paint this cover, which is this Anita's all-purpose acrylic paint in the beautiful color Hawaii. And I also already made these two die cuts, which is exactly the same what I had on this cover. So I just pieced these two together to put on there. And I will do the same with this canvas piece. So again, if you're looking for canvas, you can find it probably in your local art store, but also online. I know Amazon has canvas pads. Super practical for all kinds of things. This is also the canvas I print on, although I haven't figured out how to print that on my new Epson printer. My other printer, my Canon printer, which was a lot smaller, had the option of choosing other for paper type, but Epson doesn't have that and it doesn't have canvas. So I don't know how to print on canvas, because if I just put something random, like, I don't know, thick paper, for example, it immediately notices this is not thick paper. Like, it's smart that way, but it's making my life very difficult. So I have not figured that out yet. But in any case, today we will be painting this. But before we paint, we have to glue. So I'm going to use my matte gel. I am so happy to make this video. I am so thankful that you guys are here with me, because I was in a foul mood before I started filming. I just had such an annoying customer experience and I just kind of lost my nerves. I was dealing with the energy company, so where I get my gas and electricity. They sent me an invoice from July last year to current day, which is total nonsense because I didn't move into this apartment until September. So I was trying to reach them yesterday to clarify their mistake. So after waiting in the hotline for a very long time, I finally got to speak to a real person. We all know how that is, right? And he couldn't help me because he didn't have access to the documents showing when I moved into this apartment. So he said someone would call me back today, 8 a.m. Sharp at 8, I did get a call from them, but it was an automated call and they put me again on hold. I was on hold for, I'm not kidding you, 2 hours. And I was so angry by that time. And the frustrating thing is, all the while you hear their automated message saying, we value our customers, so we take our time talking to our customers, so you might have to wait a little bit longer. We ask you for a little more patience. And I'm sitting there like livid. You are stealing 2 hours out of my workday for nothing. And then I thought, this is incredible. I could sit here another 2 hours and nobody will ever pick up. So I wrote them a really nasty email just before I turned on to film this video. But being here with you now kind of takes away all the stress. So thank you for that. Okay, I dried this quickly. I'm sure many of you can relate with such an experience, right? And then after I wrote the email, I wrote in the email that I expect a real person to call me back as soon as possible. I don't know if that's going to happen. This is totally not in the middle. What am I doing? Okay, I will have to live with this. And I realized after I sent that email that I forgot to add my phone number. They do have my customer numbers, but I don't think they have my phone number on file. So probably they won't ever call me back. And then, you get this automated reply with a ticket number, but then you don't want to write another email saying, by the way, this is my phone number because it's going to open up another ticket. It's just overall such an annoying experience. Anyway, we will not dwell on that. We will move on and enjoy our crafting, right? After all, that's what we craft for, is to not think about all those unpleasantries. Is that a word? Unpleasantries that we have to deal with in daily life. I don't want too much paint in all these little nooks here. So I dried this with my heat gun, and now I'll use some buff titanium. And hopefully I will get a similar look to what I had before. And I'm going to take some of the paint off here. Most of the paint, actually. So there's hardly any left here. Hopefully this works. Oh yeah, it does. It kind of just makes the whole design look dusty. You see that? And of course this canvas structure picks up the paint very nicely. Really, the whole trick is to have as little paint on your brush as possible. But now I see the color is very different to my cover. So I'm wondering, did I use the phthalo turquoise instead? But that seems too dark. Maybe it was a mixture of the two. I'm not quite happy with this, so I'll try mixing some of this with this and see if that works better. Also, this seems a lot lighter for some reason, but it's not bright white, so I'm not sure what I did there. I wish I would have made a video on this, then I would know. Okay, this might be closer to what I had. I think also the canvas makes it look different than the cardboard, maybe. I tried it again and it looks super dark now, doesn't it? Let's see what the buff titanium does. My brush is a little bit damp now because I washed it before, but hopefully that will still work. No, it's too wet. Thankfully I have another one, so let's try it with this. This is not turning out as planned. Brush does not work as well as the other one, or I have too much paint on it. I wonder if I can get rid of some with a baby wipe. Oh yeah. Okay, so I tried this. I dried my brush. If you do that with your heat gun, please be careful. If the bristles are synthetic, they will melt. I think some of mine started to melt here. So then I just rubbed it on this cloth and that kind of helped. So hopefully this will work better now. And I have a very light touch as I'm doing this. It's not exactly the same, but I'm okay with this. As with the Jane Austen cover, I will again use my cinch because it's so much easier. But in the video by Melanie Sullivan, you can also see how she does it manually, just with a simple punch. So I'm going to make holes all along here. And I'll have to do it in 2 steps because my cover is again longer. Then there are holes here. So I'll start off on the bottom. Like that, and then I have to move this. And I'll move it so that this first hole is approximately the same distance from the top as this one is from the bottom. And then I'll move it here into this notch, put this down so that way the holes line up perfectly. And now I feel more confident doing this because it's not so long ago that I've done the Jane Austen one. I love this machine. I don't use it often, but when I do, I'm always so happy I have it. I have these linked down below as well. Now let's see for this one if all this will actually fit. Oh yes, it fits underneath. I was worried that this was going to be too bulky. We start here on the bottom. We put in this notch here and punch again. Perfect every time. Not that it's super important, but they line up exactly. Actually, that color didn't turn out so bad, right? It's not that much off. So for my Jane book, I attached this fabric spine on the outside so we can see the holes here that I punched. This time I'm going to do it the other way around because I don't want to go over this swirl here. I think that would look strange. Yeah, I don't like that. So instead, I'll put it on the inside. Oh, and I should have painted the inside. Why didn't I do that? I need to paint the inside first. I love that for me. Okay, let's Still have the paint here, so that's good. This backside is really soaking up a lot of paint, of course, because it's just fabric. Okay, I dried my brush again as best as I could. Okay, so this is the back cover. This is the inside, and I would glue it here and then sew through that by hand. But now I'm thinking I would glue that here, and then I would poke holes with my awl and then stitch through it. But now I'm thinking, rather than poking holes with the awl, with the awl, why not punch the holes? Meaning, I'm going to line this up so that this gap here is even, and so that these hovers, these holes are covered. Oh my goodness. And then I'm going to take this pencil and mark where I need to punch the holes. I am making this up as I go. I did not plan this when I started the video. Okay, and then this is the outer cover, and this is going to go here. This is a bit more tricky because I cannot lay it down flat. Let's put this here again. I shouldn't have moved that, because now I can move this so that the distance from this die cut is equal on both sides, and that way it will look like it was always meant to be in the middle. Okay, so I see all my holes here, and I can now take my crocodile. Hopefully the holes will be a similar size. Yeah, I think they will. Last time I used bookbinder's glue and applied it with a brush. This time I'm going to try some textile glue. So double and triple check that you're gluing the right side on the right side of your cover, because that can easily go wrong. So this is going to go on like this. So I need to put my glue here. This is my front cover. And now I'm going to line up those holes, obviously. And I noticed that the textile glue is gripping a lot quicker than the bookbinder's glue did. So let's see what it looks like from the front. Yep, that's good. And I'll do the same thing for my back cover. So I turn this around and put the glue here. And then add the cover on top. Interesting. Okay, this needs to dry before I start stitching. Okay, I think it's dried enough. Learning from my mistakes from last time, I now took a thread which is 5 times the height of my journal, because I don't want to run out of thread once I'm down here. And I'm taking a blunt needle, which will make it so much easier to avoid piercing my thread. So I'm again starting from the inside top hole on the back side, leaving a tail long enough to tie a double knot, going over the top here, going into that same hole again, pulling that tight, and then I'm going to make a double knot here. Then I'm going to go out through the second hole, turn it around, and again I'm doing the chain stitch, so I'll go through my 2 threads here on the top, pull up, make sure it's nice and tight, and go back in through that same second hole. Like that. And I keep doing that all the way to the bottom. So now I go into my third hole, come back up, go through these two top ones, pull nice and tight, and go back into that third hole. I really enjoy this actually. I have to say these big holes make it so much easier than trying to go through the hole you made with your awl. Not your owl, your awl. And the cool thing is you can just easily go through the two threads because you have this big hole here, and it's just so easy to get your needle under there. So I'm at the last hole. I'll go through these two threads like I always do. Come back inside on the last hole. And then we do this, what is it called? Half hitch knot, I think it's called. So I go through both of these on the inside. And then before that loop here closes, I go through that again with my needle, and then I pull tight. You can do that several times, so let's do that. Through both, and then through that same thread. Yeah, that works really well actually. Then I'm going to cut this short, as well as the one on top. Last time I even added a glue dot on these knots. So there's the back side, and it looks so neat. I love it. Oh my goodness, I totally forgot something. So I just made a mistake, but I'm not sure it really matters. I was supposed to go around the cover here on the bottom, which I didn't. See, like I did here on top, but actually it doesn't matter. It's totally fine. So I just have to do it the same way on this cover, and then no one will ever know. The only thing is that this hole, of course, looks a lot bigger now because it's not covered by thread. I can live with that. And also I just realized with the big holes, because you can see through, you don't even have to turn your book around every time. You can just have your thread go through your hole, and then you can see where your next hole is. So that makes it so much quicker to do. This goes pretty fast now. So that was really pretty quick to do. I love the result. I like the yellow accent. It's the same thread I used here. That's the outside. That's the inside. And it's nice and flexible and super sturdy. This will not come apart. So now I can tackle the signature issue. So I have 3 of these papers, which are double the size of a regular A4. So they are A3. So these I can obviously very easily cut down to fit in here. And by the way, I want this journal to only have blank pages. Not white pages, but blank pages without any embellishments on them. Okay, so that's easy. That gives me 6 pages. And for these regular sized A4 papers, I am simply going to stitch them together with my sewing machine. So I'll just put them like this in my sewing machine and add a zigzag stitch right on the edge to connect them. Okay, so I made 3 signatures with 6 pages each. Let me show you how I sewed these together. So you just take your 2 papers and put them right in the middle of your foot, and then you just sew a zigzag stitch. It's easier if you use a big zigzag stitch like I have here. And on the top, on the bottom, I went back and forth just to make sure that it won't come undone. As you can see here, they're kind of off on both sides. If that really bothers you, you could trim that off, but I'm just going to leave that on. And just one tip, this might seem obvious to you. Cut your papers to the length that you need before you sew them, because I sewed 4 before I realized that I first need to cut them down. So I had to re-sew the top and the bottom just to make sure it doesn't come off after I cut it. And by the way, these papers, which I think are fabulous, are papers I made putting rusty objects on top and spraying it with a vinegar water solution. These are originals, but I also have digital versions of these linked below for you. I also took these to my paper trimmer to make sure that this side is even. So now these will fit nicely into my cover. I enjoy these threads hanging out. Maybe you don't. If you don't, then you don't do that, obviously. So now I could either sew them right through this spine, but in this case, I don't want to do that. So instead, I will make a hidden spine using another strip of canvas, which I again have to paint. And I cut this strip so that it fits right in between here, like this. And this time I'm going to use this ochre yellow, just to switch things up a bit. So once that's dry, I'm going to turn it around and do my signature measurements on the back side. That way I don't have to erase any pencil marks afterwards. So I'm just going to, as always, find my middle. And then I'll go 1 centimeter on each side. Then I'll find my middle again. I'll do 7 holes this time, so I need 3 more on each side. So I'll take 3 centimeters, 1, 2, 3, and same thing on this side, 1, 2, 3. Then I'll poke my holes where all the lines meet. And then I have all my holes here on the front without having to worry about any pencil marks. Next, we of course have to sew our signatures onto this piece of canvas. Usually I would obviously make the same holes here that I have here on my spine, but we have the additional challenge that most of these papers are cut in the middle. So I don't think we're going to see the holes if I punch them. So I'm going to just try for the first time to do this without pre-punching any holes. So I'm just holding this parallel to see where my lowest hole is. And I want to poke through there, and then I'll poke in the first hole on the bottom here on my canvas. As you can see, I'm starting from the bottom, and then I'll just go up and weave down again. Okay, and now I go through this hole. This is a bit challenging, I have to admit. Make sure these two are still lined up. Now I close this again to see where my next hole is. I'm not sure if I should recommend this binding method. I'm just thinking what would probably be much easier if you have a sewing machine is to just sew right through it with your sewing machine. why shouldn't that work? Okay, now we're at the top and we just go back down. This should be easier because now I already see where the holes are. And also I would recommend using the same embroidery thread color as your stitching. Otherwise I think it will look a bit crazy unless that's what you want. I'll just make a double knot here. Okay, so one is in and 2 more to go. I did it, they're all in, and now I just need to glue it into my spine. So I'm going to use my textile glue again. You use your strongest glue. I know this one grips well and holds really well. And now we center this into our spine. I'm going to stand up for that. Make sure none of my threads are in the way. And I can use a bone folder to get it down. And I can also press down in between my signatures, right here. We'll let that dry for a little bit. And there she is, all done. Nice and flexible spine, meaning our pages are going to lay super flat. So let's do a quick flip through. Thankfully, we already had some ties. Actually, it wouldn't need it, but since it's here, let's use it. It's a bit long. I think I'm going to shorten this. Now she looks loved, doesn't she? I am super happy with how she turned out. So let's put her back on the journal shelf. There we go. Love you guys. Mwah, mwah.